Oh, what a time to be alive, kids. Welcome in to Cleveland Browns Daily. Merely Beau. And guess who's calling in from assignment in the warmer regions of our fine country, the Great Z. And what would make the Great Z join us live? Oh, I wonder, my friend, what could it be?
Well, I don't know. I'm sitting here in a hammock looking out at the coral waters as far as I can see, maybe to the Bahamas from the beautiful Florida Keys right now. And, yes, what's going on, Beau? I've been summoned. They said, I need you at 1 o'clock. What is happening? I hear maniacal laughs, and I can only think that can mean one thing. Is it Jadeveon Clowney, Beau? Is it happening?
Oh, he was always meant to be in Ohio, and Z. He was always meant to be. He eviscerated that poor Michigan kid all those years ago. He was meant to be in this state, and so he is reportedly signing on a one-year deal, upwards of $10 million on the contract. It is, and you and I have talked about this. We've talked about that in the earlier shows this week with Gibby and I. You knew that you just had a really strong feeling that this deal would be done before the draft. And we have talked a lot about this idea of being unfettered going to the draft. You're completely unfettered going to the draft. You can do whatever you want. You are not in a box in any way. You needed to add something more here. We certainly like Takk McKinley. We like that. But you wanted to add something more here. This has been – Jadeveon Clowney has been the apple of our eye for a long time. I mean, we did this last year. So to get it to come to fruition reportedly, again, nothing official yet, but all indications are that this is it's just a matter of time on that front. To get Jadeveon Clowney signing on the line, which is dotted, to get him now penciled into that lineup opposite Myles Garrett, you start to look to this roster. I understand we see this show and we see this team through orange and brown colored glasses, my friends. I don't know how this isn't a top 5 roster in the NFL. I don't know how it's not a Super Bowl contender. I think it's both of those things, and I think this really cements an incredibly, nearly flawless job in free agency for Andrew Berry.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I think, we've been operating and speaking of as though this were imminent. And, in fact, I came down here on Saturdays when I left for the Keys, and I brought my microphone and my Surface because I said, look, if we signed Clowney while I'm gone, and that was before they even reported that he was coming in. I think that was like Sunday or Monday that was reported. I said, I got to be ready to talk to the man. So I think that we knew this was maybe in the works here for those who like to pay attention to the scores. And you're right, the apple of the Browns' eye. They got that meeting to get face-to-face with one another, to get a feel for each other, and the Browns said, yes, let's add a former number 1 overall pick, a 3-time Pro Bowler, an absolute elite run defender on the edge. And while his sack numbers aren't gaudy, he has been a consistent generator of pressure, top 5 in the NFL over the last 4 seasons. So this is a guy who knows how to get to the quarterback. He's going to work opposite Myles Garrett. And I think when you look at Carl Lawson, who, boy, I like Carl Lawson, Trey Hendrickson, some of those exciting free agents that were out there. Well, we got Clowney and Takk McKinley for the same price as Carl Lawson. In fact, probably a little bit less. And so I think for what the Browns want to do, this is great. Joe Woods, Chris Kiffin, they are giddy. And think about this. Clowney is an even better interior pass rusher. He doesn't do it much, but my boy John Costco at Pro Football Focus told me when he's matched up with guards, a 20% pass rush win rate, one of the best in the league for defensive ends kicking in. So imagine this for a second, Beau. Myles Garrett on an edge, Jadeveon Clowney inside, Malik Jackson inside, Takk McKinley on an edge. And then you think about our corners and our safeties, and I don't think we're done at corner. I think that's where the draft is really going to lead us early now. But, boy, you don't want to be 3rd and long against this Browns defense. And I think just the absolute transformation of this defense, bringing in guys all 3 levels. You got your back end. Now you've got your front, and you needed that extra veteran, and you've got it. And I think this is exciting. Clowney sets the edge as well as anybody against the run, and then he's dynamic getting after the quarterback. And he was one of the most double-teamed guys in the NFL. That's not going to happen anymore with Myles Garrett. I mean, you can put those guys on the same side. Now, so many possibilities, but you're right. The pressure is there. This is a team that absolutely should be better than it was a year ago. I think this defense has a chance to be an elite defense in the National Football League. And so, yeah, the pressure is there. This is a team with, I think you say it, it's Lombardi aspirations. That's why you're here. That's why the teams do this. That's why you make these kind of moves that Andrew Berry has made here, the latest, of course, being Jadeveon Clowney.
And it now, my friend, is official. The Browns do officially sign. The release is out. Three-time Pro Bowl pass rusher Jadeveon Clowney. Sir Andrew is the scribe on this one, and the Browns added more experience, depth, and talent to the defensive end position. Some quotes on this. Here's from Coach Stefanski. We're excited to add Jadeveon to our defensive line. He's a disruptive force that will help us against the run and the pass. We've been able to make some nice additions to our defense throughout free agency, and we're looking forward to getting to work so we can improve our team. This is from AB now. Jadeveon's had a very productive career since 2014. We love his relentless style of play. He's one of the more disruptive players in the game. We think he's going to add an element of ruggedness along our defensive line and will pair nicely with many of the guys we have on the roster already. The other thing we love about Jadeveon is his versatility, his ability to play across all of the front and impact the game regardless of alignment. AB continues Jadeveon's play-to-play impact on the game, whether in the run game as a rusher, lined up as a three technique, or lined up at the end is something we really value. We think he'll be really be beneficial in our defensive system. It's crazy to see it. We've talked about this one, and there was the pursuit of J.J. Watt certainly, but I remember even during that time saying that we really thought Clowney was the better fit.
Yep.
You would have taken J.J. Watt, and of course you engage of a player of that caliber, no question. But the better fit for what Joe Woods wants was Jadeveon Clowney, and it really is his versatility, which you touched on, and then, of course, Andrew Berry touched on in some of the comments that are coming out now officially.
Well, let me tell you this. What struck me about those comments is that they're talking about doing things with Clowney that he, like I said, has not done much. The fact that he mentions three-tech in the press release quote, that's what they're giddy about. They are giddy about, we love to run that NASCAR package, and now our NASCAR package on third down is going to have Garrett, it's going to have Clowney, and Tack McKinley, who is great from the wide nine position. You are going to see that trio on the field together a lot. And that's what they love, because Clowney can hold up against the run. Certainly when he's in that three technique spot, he can get to the quarterback very effectively, as I talked about earlier, what his stats have been when lined up inside in pass rushing situations. And you have now burners off the edge, Garrett and McKinley's going to get out in that wide nine and come at you. It is going to be a handful for opposing offenses. And I love that they put that in the press release, because that is what you see. This is what the Browns are doing. Here's a guy with unbelievable talent. We all know that. He was the number one overall pick. He's a household name. But we're already thinking about doing things with him that haven't really been done in his career. While he's thrived in those situations, it hasn't happened because teams haven't had a McKinley to play outside when you kick him in, along with a Myles Garrett. He's used to being the top dog. And I know you would say, well, when he was in Houston, you had Watt more on the inside. He was the top guy on the outside. Now you're going to have the top guy on the outside, Myles Garrett, without question. And now you got Clowney and McKinley to move around as pieces. It's going to be hard, and they're all versatile. You can kick Myles inside. You can kick Tack inside. You can move all these guys around, and teams aren't going to be able to really scheme for what we do, because you can't scheme for that kind of talent. And that's why I love this signing so much, and it's one that we expected. I'm glad that it worked out, and I think that press release right there, given what we were talking about moments ago, tells you everything you need to know that Jadeveon Clowney in the brown and orange is going to be unleashed in a way that he has not been at any other stop in his career, and I think that is going to be exciting. I mean, we got 3 number 1 overall picks on our team. I don't know if that's ever happened before. Our defensive line room now has got Myles. It's got Sheldon's at number 1. You got Clowney at number 1 overall. Myles number 1 overall. McKinley's a first-rounder as well. You're talking about some real pedigree and talent to get after the quarterback, and I love it.
It's pretty remarkable, buddy, when you start to do the math on what has happened here defensively for us this year.
Yeah.
It's even more. I mean, last year the focus was obviously entirely on the offense, and the news came quickly on that front, obviously with Conklin and Hoop, and then we address it obviously in the draft as well, with Jed off the top in the first round. But you think about the defensive transformation that has taken place here. You have 40% of the best secondary in the NFL is now on your team in Johnson and Hill. They're now on your team. Anthony Walker, one of the most sure tacklers, young tacklers in the NFL. You heard how Darius Leonard talked about him. He's on your team. Malik Jackson, Super Bowl champion. You talk about what he can bring to the table, the versatility that he provides. 2 former and first-round picks, McKinley, and a former number 1 overall in Clowney. It is such an incredible infusion of talent. And the thing that I see when you look at these guys, pal, it's versatility. It's an ability to move guys around and confuse offensive game planners and certainly quarterbacks. It is we are going to be an really ultra aggressive attacking defense that can come at you in a lot of ways. And if you think of the way that we had to play the last year, almost submissive because of just due to injury and just frankly some of the lack of talent that we had around the roster on that side of the ball, that's all been fixed, and we haven't had a draft yet.
Exactly. And Joe Woods does not get enough credit for what he did last year. He never got to play the defense he was expecting to play when you lose Greedy and Grant on that same day. And now you've got Grant back. Ronnie Harrison is the silver line that comes out of that Delpit situation. Oh, and by the way, now you've got John Johnson back there. So you've got the three safeties. You hit the nail on the head, the versatility of it all. And we are going to be a team that you do not want to be in passing situations against. And guess what? Good teams, they have leads. And in the second half of games, when teams try to make comebacks, we are going to be set up for that. We're going to be set up. We're going to be better than we were last year against the run, and we are going to be significantly better than we were last year against the pass. Now, look, injuries can happen. We know that. We were talking about Grant and Greedy this time last year as being, once we drafted Grant, obviously, being a huge part of what we did. But if this team that we've got on paper now goes into the season and plays this season together, we have a chance to be an elite defense. I mean, a top 5 defense in the NFL. You pair that with our offense, and all of a sudden you see why there will be real expectations. You talk about privilege of expectations, pressure of expectations, and you're going to have all of that. I mean, could you imagine, Browns fans, imagine 4 years ago, 2017, we all know what happened then.
Come on.
That Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and Baker Mayfield and Austin Hooper and Odell and Jarvis and Denzel Ward, all of these guys, and Delpit and Harris, all these guys are going to be Browns at the same time. And you look at the money that is reported to being in these deals, we're paying Clowney and McKinley 28-26 less than we played, or about the same that we paid Vernon, who played great for us last year. I don't want this to be in any way taking away anything from Vernon, but not available, tearing the Achilles late in the year, and Adrian Claiborne, who was at the back end of his career. Now you've got a hungry McKinley looking to prove himself. You've got Clowney. I mean, it's a masterful job, and you're right. We go in this draft and we can do whatever we want. And I think that you're looking at and here's a little silver lining is I think Takk McKinley's going to have a monster year, but he's obviously not going to play as much with Clowney here as he would have otherwise. And I think you have a chance for him to show you I'm the long-term answer. And I still think he can be your long-term answer. And so you've got it all set up where it's just well done. And look, 3 Ps, no shock, right? This is what Andrew Berry and company does. But this is, it tells you how much the perception of the Browns have changed amongst the players. The top guys, John Johnson wants to come here, doesn't want to pass up on the opportunity of a lifetime. Clowney wants to be here now. I mean, that's a different scenario than we're used to. And Andrew Berry goes about it methodically, doesn't overpay, and somehow seems to get exactly who he wants when he wants them.
Yeah, this has the potential to be such a frightening defense, and one that comes at you in a lot of different ways. And you think about the passing downs, you think what you can be against the run now. You think about those 3 safeties and the type of versatility that they have. And I think you hit on it. Clearly corner is the spot that you're going to say, all right, let's add another one there. But these are luxuries. These are luxuries. You could, if you think about even at defensive end, and I agree with your point on Takk McKinley, even if somebody were to fall at defensive end, I mean, this is a position that in the free agent market, it's a $15 million a year position is what you're going to have to pay in the free agent market. Now you can get one on a rookie deal who you can develop in your own system if you want to. The idea that Andrew Berry can approach this draft with really a blank slate and not have to go get anything, but can just get somebody who falls. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. Maybe Kamara out of Notre Dame falls. One of those guys with elite traits. Yeah. Those guys falls. Do you need that guy? No, but boy, he's kind of a missile on the field. Maybe that's something you can add. It's uncharted. I don't know that it's ever happened. Certainly in my lifetime around the franchise, it hasn't. Certainly in yours, it hasn't.
Oh.
You got to go back a long time to find a situation where before you got to a draft, you had a roster this talented offensively and defensively. There just really isn't any holes on it.
There aren't any holes on it, and we are going to be so well coached and so well prepared, and we're running it back on offense. We spent all this time talking about the defense. We are running it back on offense, and you saw the improvement over the course of the season, and Odell Beckham Jr. gets to come back to this offense. We're in a tremendous, tremendous position, and I think it's one of those things where I'm sitting here, I can't wait to get back to Berea. I can't wait to get going into this season and to see these guys on the field together. This is an exciting day to be a Browns fan. Yeah, one of many exciting days to be a Browns fan that we've really had this offseason, and the draft's still coming.
Right. We love the draft in 2 weeks, my friend. I want to let you get back to your vacation, but I'll give you this one. It's Baker Mayfield's 26th birthday today, as we know.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, 6. And he just put out on Instagram, this is a nice birthday present with Clowney. So yeah, that's
yes, indeed it is. It's a perfect
good
way for me to end my vacation, give me a little energy and excitement to get back to Cleveland. Let's go. I got to get this on-air light pack going on. I've heard I've been besmirched over Masters tournaments. I don't care. All is forgiven. Let's go.
Going to be fun. Enjoy your final hours, my friend. Look forward to having you back here tomorrow on the program. The great Nathan Zegura, my friend. Good job, buddy. All right, that is the Z, of course, calling in right there. And there's a lot to try to digest here, but the big news of the day, of course, it is official. Jadeveon Clowney is a Cleveland Brown. This is your OBM Hot Topics, Ohio Business Machine, preferred copy provider of your Cleveland Browns. For all the X's and O's for your office, call 216-485-2000 or visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. Get some perspective from former Rams great, Buckeye great James Laurinaitis at the bottom of the hour on this Browns defense and what has really transpired here this offseason. Teresa Walker was covering the Titans last year. She will join us coming up in the hour as well, and you'll hear from around the NFL some of the highlights and some of the buzz of it now being official. Jadeveon Clowney, a Cleveland Brown, off and running on what is definitely a First Friday miracle. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily. Beau Bishop here from my friends at Northeast Factory Direct. If you're sick and tired of your outdated kitchen, it is the perfect time to upgrade. And if you're looking to do so, go to Northeast Factory Direct to check my guys out. They've got high-quality name-brand furniture. You know that. You know they got the hot tub center. They got that, about half the price of the fancy retail stores. But at Northeast, you can also get high-quality kitchen cabinets and cabinets in general for 60 to 70% less than at those expensive kitchen remodeling stores. And it's really easy. You make an appointment, you bring in some basic measurements, and they're going to walk you through everything. And the best part about this is the appointment and especially the design, those are free. Northeast Factory Direct cuts out all the costs associated with traditional stores. You can buy nice stuff at really incredible prices. They also have 0% financing available. That's right, 0% financing available. So if you're looking and thinking about remodeling your kitchen, it is simple. Go to northeastfactorydirect.com and schedule your appointment today. It's still surreal, Gibbe, to see it on the social and all of that. We've been talking about it for feels like 2 years. Last year we talked about it, but on the Browns official Twitter page. Welcome to Cleveland, Jadeveon Clowney. We've signed 3-time Pro Bowl pass rusher Jadeveon Clowney to the Browns. It is a done deal. It is a one-year deal. Reportedly, incentives up to $10 million on that. Z with some great points in terms of we were able to get really McKinley and Clowney at the price that would have cost for Carl Lawson. So you get both of them for that price, and it's incredible. You're born here, you grew up here, Gibby. This roster is just loaded. There's just no holes with it, and I don't recall ever. There's very few teams in the NFL who can approach the draft and say, yeah, we don't need anything, and view it as a luxury. And that's what Andrew Berry has done. He had a plan last season on the offensive side. He executed it. Plan this offseason on the defensive side. He executed it.
Executed it. I mean, we talk about the offense and how stacked they are. Let's take a look at the defense. Your defensive tackles, Richardson, Billings, Jackson. This is from Mike Clay. By the way, we have a couple draft picks from last year that didn't see a whole lot of time in Elliott and Phillips. Add them to the mix. At edge, Garrett, Clowney, McKinley. Your linebackers, Smith, Walker, Taki, Mack, Phillips. Your corners, Ward, Hill, Greedy Williams. Your safeties, Johnson, Delpit, Harrison. Think you've upgraded?
Jeez.
That's 6 signings, by the way, defensively.
It's amazing. We went through them all with Johnson, Hill, Walker, Jackson, McKinley, and now Clowney in the mix. All of them fit. The versatility on them speaks for themselves. A lot of guys who do a lot of different things. The ability of Jadeveon Clowney to flip inside is going to be huge in this. Nathan talked about that NASCAR package with Clowney and McKinley and obviously Miles there. This is a day to celebrate all of it. It's a day to celebrate this offseason. The idea that you can have this type of celebration and euphoria and you haven't even gotten to a draft is remarkable because you will only add guys that you love there. But it is also something that, look, we can't control. No one can control injury. You can't control things that come out of nowhere. Those things can happen, certainly. That's not what today's about. Today is about a team that on paper is a Super Bowl contender. That's what this is. And what Clowney allows for you to do is he allows for your defensive line to be dominant. He is elite at setting the edge. He is elite when it comes to pressure. He is elite when it comes to stopping the run. He has never on the outside played opposite Miles. Now all of a sudden imagine him rushing the passer next to Miles, and that's what he'll be able to do here. So if he can stay healthy and that tandem added into what is already pretty dang good up front, is downright scary. You couple that with the additions that have been made in the secondary, and again, we're not to the draft yet. This has a chance to be a dynamic defense, and I don't think you should shy away from it. I think we're operating like an organization that thinks it can win the Super Bowl.
You and I were just talking about it during the break. The moves we're making right now basically show you, there's 2 teams that have won free agency. Tampa Bay and us.
Yep.
Think about that for a minute. Everybody talks about Tampa Bay bringing everybody back, and that's a hell of a feat. That's a really impressive thing to do after you coming off a Super Bowl. But look at what we've done. The window is now for this football team, and they understand it, and they're putting the pieces in place. and let's go play football.
They've also maintained their flexibility going forward. They're not in any sort of salary cap jail at all. We know who we have to re-sign. We know the contracts that need to be done long term. But those things aren't things that need to be addressed right now. And nothing you have done has hamstrung you long term. You have an ability to keep the guys that you want on this roster. This is a very, very young, attractive roster that is now really dynamic across the board. It's a really, really remarkable thing when you come to think of it. And this is an interesting thing from Seth Walder, just putting this out here in the last couple of minutes from ESPN Sports Analytics. Highest double-team rate when pass rushing as an edge the last 3 seasons. Michael Bennett, number 1. Zadarius Smith, number 2. Jadeveon Clowney, number 3. 28% of the double-team rate for Jadeveon Clowney. So I know people get caught up in the sack numbers. It's who are you occupying, what is your pressure, and what type of a disruptive force are you? And Jadeveon Clowney, rest assured, is a disruptive force. He is noticed on the field. And now with him, with Miles, and all that talent in the middle of the defensive line, and Tack McKinley as well, there is the potential here for this to be a very great defense, an incredible overhaul of this roster. Go ahead, Gibby.
Yeah, Jadeveon Clowney will address the media at 2 o'clock today. We will carry that live on Browns Daily.
All right.
They're trying
Very,
to get
very good.
everything
We'll get
in. This is about as quick a car wash as you can get because he is flying out later today.
There you
this
go.
is an
Well, that's
in-out,
good.
so things are changing quickly here.
Well, that's beautiful. So you'll hear from Jadeveon Clowney, the newest member of the Cleveland Browns, at the top of the hour. Coming up next, speaking of this defense and what it can do, we'll talk to somebody who knows a little bit about it. He was a 3-time first-team All-American at Ohio State. He is the Los Angeles, then St. Louis Rams all-time leading tackler. He is my buddy James Laurinaitis. He will join us in a couple of minutes with his perspective on what has happened here defensively. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. If your game plan for this season includes buying or selling a home, Howard Hanna Real Estate Services has you covered. Visit howardhanna.com/go Browns today. Time to head out on the hotline and visit with my good buddy James Laurinaitis, former NFL linebacker standout with the Rams, and, of course, Buckeye great, currently radio host on 97.1 The Fan down in Columbus on some show called Bishop and Laurinaitis, where I'm sure he carries the other stiff on that show. Buddy, this is a bit of a day here for the Browns with this Jadeveon Clowney news, and you talk about versatility and everything that he can bring to the table. Now you add him to some of these other additions. What does this allow Joe Woods to do defensively?
Oh, man, well, it's always good to talk to you. 3 hours in the day is not enough for me. I like to add a little more to that. But I look, for me, man, this is scheme flexibility. And when you are on defense, you're trying to figure out, how do we attack the other team's protection? What do they like to do to protect their quarterback? And how do we get after it? Can we get there with 4? This helps you do that. What is their weaknesses? Where are they at? If they have interior problems, a lot of people are talking about, hey, opposite Myles Garrett would be my goodness, how are they going to block them both? What about putting them on the same side of the line of scrimmage? What about putting them over there on the guard and on the tackle, and then knowing, my goodness, they have to then bring their center over to help or keep a tight end in. If they keep the tight end in, that's one less in coverage, which helps your back end unit. And if they decide to slide, then you know where you can pressure and overload a running back in protection. So there's so many little things that this will kind of help you almost tilt the scales, if you will, as a play caller on defense to kind of get an advantage when you already know what the opposing offense is going to have to do to stop those two guys.
And one thing about him, pal, is that, I know a lot of people get caught up in the sack numbers that I don't know if that maybe aren't what people thought that they would be, but I think that what is missed sometimes is the type of attention that he draws. In the last 3 years, he's actually third in the NFL in terms of most times double teamed from the edge position. He's elite in rush defense. He will set the edge at a very high level, and his pressure rate is really, really good. He's a problem. He's noticeable. And now you put him, I like what you brought up in terms of putting him next to Myles Garrett, and they call it sometimes up here, they call it a NASCAR package. And if you put Tack McKinley, who can get after it a little bit, maybe from that wide 9 spot, and then Clowney and Myles, that's a lot to deal with from an offensive line perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and you're starting to notice the depth. So what I love about it, too, is that the next layer of it is it goes to the draft. It enables you to truly pick best available. This doesn't, to me, say, hey, there's no way they're going rusher or DN. They're going to take whoever is best available. But when you have Tack and you have Jadeveon and you have Myles, you have this rotation of guys, it really means no matter who needs a break or come in and out, it allows you to call a lot of the same things. And coordinators think that deeply. If they look out there and they see, dang, we got DN 5 or 6 in there, well, maybe we shouldn't just run this 4-man rush. He's not going to get there. All those things are factored into play calls, and this just gives you more flexibility with that. What's interesting here with the deal and the amount of money, a lot of people you're right about the whole sack thing. It tells you that athleticism will take you a long way in the National Football League. There is only a few human beings at that position who have gone number 1 overall. And there's a weight with it, right? There's always an expectation of a certain number of sacks, a certain number of production. A lot of times production, when I played there, I was the same way as a fan. I just thought sacks. That's it. And then you'll look up some years and you'll be like, how did this guy have this many sacks? Oh, it's because everyone was trying to double team Robert Quinn on our team, or everyone started to notice Aaron Donald. And so they had to kind of look elsewhere. Other guys would get production because they were getting the one-on-one. Sacks don't always tell the whole story. You don't like the number 0. You want him to have more production than that. But I think that there's a lot of factors that can come into that. And there's only a certain number of guys who are that size with that kind of athleticism and have those kind of traits. So I think it's a huge win for the organization. It gives them a ton of flexibility, not only in scheme, but also when it comes to draft day.
James Laurinaitis, our guest, 3-time first-team All-American at Ohio State, all-time leading tackler with the Rams organization. When you start talking about versatility on this defensive line, and then you go and as we take a bigger picture view to what Andrew Berry has done in Cleveland with the Browns this entire offseason, and then you go to the secondary and you say, okay, you get John Johnson. He was clearly who they wanted right away. You know him well from his days with the Rams, obviously, and you have him. And if Grant Delpit can be healthy, and then you have Ronnie Harrison, and all of those guys are kind of interchangeable. They can all rush they can all blitz. They can all cover the slot. They can all bring the heat if they need to. They can bring the wood if they need to. You're talking about now versatility at an extreme level on the back end and on the front. From an offensive perspective, trying to figure out where the pressure's coming from, this seems like it could be a bit of a nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And what you're trying to do is confuse offenses. A lot of times teams will tend to know where pressures come from based off of either a DN, sometimes Beau, or it could be a linebacker. Heck, to be perfectly blunt, when I was in the old Greg Williams scheme, teams knew that I wasn't going to be an edge rusher. I was not the most successful edge rusher out of all of our linebackers.
Right.
So they knew a lot of times I was going to be a low hole guy. And there was ways we could try to trick them on certain things. But ultimately, what we tended to do then was we started to put Mark Barron on one side and we put Alec Ogletree on another. Or sometimes it could be Mark Barron on one side and LaMarcus Joyner on the other side. And if teams went in motion, we could be in man coverage to where those guys would just bump things instead of running because we didn't care about the matchup. We thought, you know what, both are athletic enough to cover said player. And to the quarterback, they go motion from a 3-by-1 to a 2-by-2 or something. And you see guys communicating and bumping it, you're thinking, oh, well, that's just zone. They're in zone. They're adjusting to zone drops. Oh, no, actually we're in man. And you couldn't tell because most teams in man, that guy runs with them across the formation. So it allows that kind of versatility. You can flip blitzes instantly because they're similar body types. And so a team can't just come out and say, hey, you know what, here comes 24. He's coming off the edge. Let's slide to him. You don't know who's coming. You don't know who you favor in coverage more than the other person. I think last year there were some obvious mismatches to where teams could line up and say, hey, whoever, I don't want to name names, but player X is on so-and-so, we're going after him. This year there's a lot more versatility and there's a lot more confusion, I would say, for opposing offenses. And the same thing, this is what I love about the situation they're in. We talked about it with pass rusher. I don't think they're off the table there. Just because they got Johnson, I don't think they're off the table for, you talk about whether it's a corner, whether it's, name Newsome at Northwestern, or think about the DNs that could be available there, or think about even wide receiver. There are so many positions to where you look at this Browns roster for the first time in a long time to where you say, I know we have needs, and maybe those needs aren't as good as other positions, but they're not really desperation needs. And so you can really honestly sit there, and that's a credit to Andrew Berry, you can sit there and take the best available and add a young man who will be the best player on the board, on your board, and you have to trust the front office that they're already making great decisions along the way the last few years here to make the really good decision, bring a guy in, and gives you roster flexibility.
It allows you. We've been using the term. It allows you to approach the draft without burden. There's no pressure to go get a specific position. If a tremendous, elite trait person falls to you, even if it is not a position of that even you, because there really isn't a position of need, but now it can even be a position of luxury. But if somebody falls to you, now all of a sudden you go, wow, boy, this guy's got something that we don't have. Do we need him right now? No, but it's a great luxury. And this is what Baltimore's done recently. This is what Pittsburgh's done for a long time. This is what the teams that have had sustained excellence have been able to do, and you can only do it when you have a roster that's had everything else addressed, and that seems to be what's happened here.
Yeah, it is, and then it allows you to accumulate the best possible player, and regardless of position, at that spot, which then gives you flexibility. Let's use wide receiver, for example. You would say there's no way the Browns need a wide receiver. But if there's some guy who slides and you're like, I can't believe he is here, and we can take him, now it gives you flexibility to be able to say, you know what, when a certain contract comes up or if someone calls me for a certain player, I have flexibility to either make a deal or release a certain player or not. Or if it could be a DN, it could be any position, but I'm just using wideout because it's an obvious strength. But you're able to sit there and say, now I have flexibility. Oh, and my front office is able to get a little tweak here and there in free agency to help round out the roster. I think that's the main difference, is that there'd be times where you'd go after certain just names or certain players in free agency. There was no cohesive plan. You don't get the sense now. Like they have specific targets of guys that they want. They have a certain price point for each player. You bring them in, and then when you're supplementing that, and you have the patience of Andrew Berry, you're able to sit back and just kind of say, all right, I trust my front office to make the right moves here. And I think that's what you've got, the hard work of finding not only the main starters, but role players as well has given you this flexibility to say, you know what, if the wide receiver falls to us, goodness, we don't really need one, but how could we not take this kid? Or if it's a DN, you're saying, well, you don't want to get in the point ever where you're like, well, we just signed Clowney and Tack, so we can't take a DN. No, like, okay, if he's the best available and he's slid to us, take him, and you trust your board. You're able to fully trust your board without any pressure of a need.
Yeah, it's a tremendous luxury that hasn't been afforded, for a very, very long time. I'll get you out of here on this one. And Gibby and I were talking in the previous segment. I feel like this is a top 5 or 6 roster in the league. I do, and I think it's a team that ought to have a Super Bowl as the aspiration.
No, I totally agree with you. I think there is a window here. There's a realistic. This isn't just like there's fan talk. And trust me, this is player talk too, right? Where you're like, I had way too many 7-9 seasons for my liking in my pro career. And so when you're that close to the postseason, you start saying, well, gosh, if we hadn't given up that punt return for a touchdown, or the coaches do this all the time. You'll hear it. Well, if you take away the 80-yard touchdown run against us and the 74-yard pass, I mean, really we win. Well, yeah, no crap. That's the game. That's football, but those plays did happen. You can't take them away. But you find yourself getting in this mindset. But then there's a realistic explanation. Like when you look to the fumble against the Chiefs, you're just thinking like the what ifs in that situation are, it gives you confidence of we had one of the best teams in the league on the ropes. Like that was a game that you let slip away off of one play, essentially. And games happen that way. That's not a fantasy. That's not if this, that, there's a lot of times as fans and players, you can go down that road to help, kind of get yourself fired up for a game. But I think the Browns are in a unique window. Baker Mayfield's progression and the start, he needs to start the season this year like he ended last season. And it's amazing the tale of 2 seasons for him. And as he gets more comfortable in the scheme, you expect that to happen. But they're in a window. And these windows, as we've seen, don't last long. Look at the Falcons, right? They come and they can go. Sometimes it's going to be a year. Sometimes it can be 3 or 4. You don't know how long it's going to last, but you have to capitalize on your time when you have an opportunity to make that run.
Appreciate you, pal.
Anytime, man.
All right. Good talking to you. The great James Laurinaitis, of course, former NFL and Buckeye standout, joining us on the hotline there for some perspective on what has been done here and the idea of embracing being a Super Bowl contender, because that's, I think, what this roster is at this point. Teresa Walker will join us coming up next. She covered the Titans, of course, for the Associated Press and pro football in general. That is coming up next. Quite a day, kids. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Social Security benefits have been denied. Call the disability lawyers at 1-800-ELK-OHIO. Elk & Elk is a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. As we head out on the hotline for some more perspective, Jadeveon Clowney officially a Cleveland Brown as of just about an hour ago. Teresa Walker, AP writer on the pro football scene, covered the Titans last year where Clowney was, and obviously it did not go as they planned. Just 8 games for Jadeveon before spending the rest of the year on the IR. Teresa, thanks for your time. The Jadeveon Clowney experience with the Titans, disappointment obviously in terms of production all around and across the board. What did you see from Clowney when he was in Tennessee last year?
Well, let's put it this way. What we were expecting were, sacks, maybe some strip fumbles, some big plays, and didn't get that. I mean, 8 games and then he's on IR, 4 passes defense, no sacks, 1 fumble forced, 6 quarterback hits, 4 tackles for loss. Considering the build-up, I mean, it was like, ooh, Jadeveon Clowney chase all off season. Is he? Where's he going? Titans want him. He's going to be the answer to the Super Bowl questions. And then he gets here, and, it just didn't result on the field. So I'm reading my colleague Tom Withers' story there in Cleveland, and, the words that, GM Andrew Berry's using about Clowney, relentless, disruptive, versatile, guess what? Hurt those last year from the Titans, that he can affect the quarterback. So that's the interesting thing, is just trying to see, maybe the procedure that he had after he went on IR, maybe that helped, will help him get back to that guy that we have seen. But when you look at his stats, the sacks seem to be diminishing. So, that's going to be the challenge that he has in Cleveland. Is he healthy? He didn't join the Titans until really that first week of the season, essentially. He signed at the beginning of September. So, no off season, didn't have a chance to really build chemistry with the new teammates. So, that might have played into it as well.
Yeah, I was thinking about that that I do remember coming in, because we were in on him last year too, and I remember that being a late decision for Jadeveon, that was something that was much later, and I'm wondering if certainly don't have any inside input on this, and he'll address the media up here in about 10 minutes, but you do wonder if that contributed, the no off season, if he was ever really healthy, last year in Tennessee.
Well, exactly. I mean, and, let's not forget, he couldn't go out and work out for teams. So you're kind of buying, a pig and a poke, to use a phrase from down south. You're taking him at his word that, the videos that he was putting out, that he's all great and everything. And yes, he did have to pass a physical, but there's a difference, once you start getting on the field and playing in games. And, now I'll say this, there was one game where he left and I thought, okay, he's done. I was right in the story. He's back in the game a few plays later. So he did show some toughness there. And obviously the knee got to a point where he couldn't keep playing on it. So, but, and maybe that's the difference. Maybe, getting that, whatever that procedure was, getting that kind of cleaned up, fixed up, helps him be stronger. But, at a certain point, how much of a toll is it taking, and how fresh can he be? So I am curious to see if being with teammates, whatever this offseason ends up looking like, if that helps maybe in a whole camp, which he didn't have here last year, if that ends up helping make a difference as well.
Teresa Walker, our guest, AP Pro Football writer, covers the Titans down in Nashville. Teresa, I was going to ask you, because there are certainly a lot of parallels from the Browns going into this season and Tennessee going into last season. A lot of momentum in Tennessee, obviously, and the expectation of, hey, go be a challenger for the Chiefs, go take that next step, win a Super Bowl, get to a Super Bowl. It didn't happen in that way. There wasn't quite the momentum that you maybe thought would happen there. What are some cautionary tales that you can tell us from covering that team as to why that didn't quite materialize?
Well, make sure you have a kicker. Let's not forget the Tennessee Titans had kicking issues. Stephen Gostkowski, they started 5-0 and things were looking great, but their first 3 games were on kicks. And that first game, Stephen Gostkowski had a few misses there in Denver. Try to avoid a COVID outbreak, but with vaccinations going on, that seemed to throw a little bit of a kink in there. But make sure your defense is in better shape. The Titans issue, they were, one of the best offenses in the NFL, the 4th in total yards, or maybe it was 4th in points and tied for 2nd in total yards per game. Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, everything was looking great. But that defense, 19 sacks is all the Titans had last year, which, let's face it, I think this is exactly why the Browns are bringing, Clowney in. They go with Myles Garrett and help bulk up that front. And then your secondary. The Titans were last in the NFL by a large margin, giving up first downs on third down conversions. So 51+%. I mean, it was almost crazy. So improve that defense, which they're doing, and don't listen to I don't want to say that it's listening to people, but you are dealing with more attention when you make a playoff run or you start having a winning season. Now the Browns have finally experiencing what had been predicted for them. Well, the challenge is continuing it up. There are changes to the team, to the roster. It's not going to be the team that it was last year. That cliche we hear from coaches all the time. It's really true.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, even we're bringing everybody back. Well, no, you're really starting from scratch. Every year is the reality of that. The other thing I want to ask you about was the Derrick Henry deal, because that's something that we're going to be probably dealing with soon with Nick Chubb, and this notion of how do you compensate somebody who is so important. Now that deal, you're into that deal down there with Derrick Henry, I would assume at this point everyone's still thrilled about it, and it's kind of become maybe the model of how to take care of a running back without going down the Todd Gurley, Zeke Elliott road.
Well, here's the thing. The Titans didn't pay out the, they didn't go and try to top out the market. They didn't make Derrick Henry the highest paid running back in the NFL. They found a number, and, they were able to agree to it literally right at the deadline last July. But, they found that way. And Derrick Henry, he's a guy, he got paid, but, it's not like he was trying to break the bank either. So, he was happy to stay here. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made the deal, right? So that deal, and they can get out of it after this year. If suddenly, leading the league for 2 straight seasons, if it looks like the tires are falling off, there's an out for them after this season. But guess what? He's also under contract for 2 more years after this season. And if he keeps running, and if you've seen the videos of his off-season workouts, they're kind of insane. It's tough to see him with the little mileage he had at Alabama before he won the Heisman, and then the first 2 seasons with the Titans, he was behind DeMarco Murray. So he's still got, I think, an awful lot of tread left on his wheel, so to speak.
Teresa, this was excellent. Thank you so much for your perspective today on short notice.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, that's Teresa Walker, the Associated Press, pro football writer covering the Titans. Jadeveon Clowney coming up, meeting the media at the top of the hour. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
up obviously with Myles Garrett and that your arrival will help him. How much will playing with him help you?
A lot. I've been getting double teamed off a lot in this league over my career, and I'm looking forward to playing with somebody dominant on the opposite side, like a Myles Garrett who can draw a double team. Maybe I can go one-on-one more.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, Tom. Mary Kay Cabot is next.
Jadeveon, can you just talk a little bit about why were you so excited to come to the Browns this year when I know they pursued you very hard last year, and I heard that their offer was higher than anyone else's. So why this year? Why not last year?
Circumstances changed, and I got a new agent, and he was more open about coming here and wanted me to take a visit. My last one, I didn't take me to take no visit, but this one made me visit, and I came and visit. I got to sit down with the staff and got to know some of the guys, and it made it much more easier for me to come here and play.
And what did you like about the Browns during this visit?
I think they was pretty laid back and straightforward. The coaching staff was pretty laid back, and I felt like they was knew what they was doing, knew where they was going, and what the organization was headed, and how and they felt they knew how to get where they was trying to go, and I want to be a part of something like that. So that's how I ended up here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Kay. Our next question goes to Nate Ulrich.
Hey, Jadeveon, how are you feeling coming off the knee injury? And does the way, last season ended, only getting half the season in kind of motivate or fuel you as you get ready to go with the Browns?
For one, I know I stopped playing last season because of a meniscus. So I'm glad I did when I did stop. It didn't get worse. I went into getting surgery. So, but I feel great now. I'm looking forward to this season to prove the guys that I'm back healthy and I still can dominate in this league. So that's what I'm here to prove this year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nate. Next up, Daryl Ryder.
Hey, Jadeveon, welcome to Cleveland. Yeah, as you were asked earlier, the Browns wanted you last year. What does it mean to you, though, that after not coming here last year, they came hard after you again this year?
I mean, a lot, man. I mean, you wanted by somebody. You can tell that somebody really wants you. They're going to use you the right way. So that was another big part of me making my decision. They wanted me. And when you want it by somebody, you can't just turn it down like a relationship. I want to keep trying, so I'm ready.
And, when you look at this Browns defense, there's a lot of new faces that were added this year. Just what are your thoughts when you look at your side of the football and the guys that you're going to be playing with, what you as a unit could potentially achieve here?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of talent on that defense, even in the secondary all the way to the front, And so I just feel like we just got to play as a one unit and get to know each other. Since we got now the new pieces, we're going to have to get to know each other, have a feel for each other, so we know how each other play. That's going to come during training camp when we all be out there together. I think we're going to find out how special of a group we is when it come down to when training camp gets here.
Appreciate it, Daryl. We'll go to Jake Trotter.
Yeah, Jadeveon, you said just a moment ago that you got a chance to visit this year as opposed to last year, and that maybe that changed your mind a little bit about Cleveland. In what ways did your perception change about the trajectory maybe of this team, like the potential of where you guys could go this year, being in the building and getting to talk to some of the people in person?
Yeah, I talked to most of the staff, coaching staff, and just listen to them and how they're going about their schedules, and not just that, approaching the teams and what they got in their mindset for the team, the defense, and the guys around us. I was buying into all of that because they showed me how they schemed. They was thinking for their schemes, and I was like, oh, I can see myself doing that type of thing in the scheme. So that kind of helped me make my decision too, what they had me doing in the scheme, what they were showing me.
Thanks, Jake. Jeff Shadell, go ahead.
David, when you look at your numbers, 3 sacks in 2 seasons, do you feel like you really have something to prove that you are still an elite player?
Yeah, for sure. Especially coming off this injury, I didn't get to finish this past season. yeah, I just want to show that I'm a still elite player and more about proving myself than anything. To prove to other people I'm still out here to dominate. So you're gonna see this season.
Thanks, Jeff. Scott Petrick, you have our next question.
Hey, Jadeveon. Do you know Miles at all personally?
I talked to him maybe twice.
And you mentioned how nice it will be not to be double teamed off the time.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just talk about how, I don't know, frustrating and maybe how that wears down the guy trying to touch the passer when he's constantly double and triple teamed?
Oh yeah, it's definitely frustrating, man. When you game plan all week to go against one person and watch them all week to get them pass rush reps, and you go into the game and all of a sudden there's two people in front of you or somebody there to chip you the whole game. But you already know that's a good thing for you if they doing that to you. You know, they still notice you out there making plays and you're gonna affect the game. So I take it as a plus on the minus. Like they respect me on one end, but it ain't good for me. You got all these guys in front of you trying to get to their quarterback.
Thanks.
Thanks, Scott. Let's go to Aditi Kinkawala.
Hey, Jadeveon, when you look at, you're kind of dancing around this a little bit. When you look at your numbers from last year, do you think your knee had an impact on that? Like, is it fair to say that you weren't at full strength, or do you think it was kind of the scheme in Tennessee that just didn't really suit you?
Well, I think it was a little bit of both. And early on, I probably say it's the scheme, and then later on, I feel like it was my knee as far as me continuing the season, as far as me playing during the season with my knee. I just had to pull myself because I felt like I was going to hurt myself even more if I kept playing on my knee. I was going to be in a worse situation than I would be if I stopped now. So that's how I ended up stopping myself from last year.
And if I could ask one more, you talked about the staff and liking talking with them and actually coming to Cleveland this year and getting a sense of the organization. Is there anybody else on the team that you do know, or anybody else that you talked to that lobbied you and said, hey, come and join us? Or is there anything about the Browns that you feel is very different than what you thought a year ago?
Yeah, they winning. They got a great team. They're definitely on a winning team. You saw they won 12 games last year, right? More than what my team I played for won last year, I think. I just think they got I just like this division for one. I think it's great competition. Great, like I said, I get to play with great players beside me. That was one of my other decisions. I decided the guys beside me always going to be a help whoever I play with. So me and them two decisions was whoever I'm gonna play with. So that was basically it. Who I can play with and who gonna help me get to further on in my career.
Thank you, Didi. We'll go back to Tom Withers.
Thanks, Rob. Jadeveon, a couple quickies. How are you a different player? I know injuries had something to do with it, but how are you a different player than the guy we knew a couple years ago?
I think I'm a much smarter player now, more technique than I was back then. I think I learned a lot more about myself as a player now than I did know back then.
And you spoke about the winning before. How different is it playing with a team that, much like Tennessee was last year, came off a year with real high aspirations? How different is it when you play with those kinds of expectations?
Well, it's very different, man. When guys are trying to win, you saying? When they're trying to win and everybody's looking for the win, it brings out the best in everybody on the team, I think. That's what we trying to do here, bring out the best in every player. I think the staff trying to do that. And winning is definitely going to do that. You know, when you start winning, everybody happy. Everybody want to go out there and make plays and ball, man. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully we can get on that winning train and everybody just want to go out there and dominate and make plays.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Marla Ridenour, you're up.
Yeah, Jadeveon, I just wanted to, you said you've talked to Miles a couple times. Do you have any impressions of him as a player or a person? And just, do you see yourself like you two, like being the leaders of this defense, you know?
I'm not really trying to walk in and step on anybody's toes and be no hoorah guy or none of that. If they ask for my opinion or ask for anything from me, of course I would give it to them, but I'm not here to be that hoorah guy or none of that. I'm just here to help out and do my job and play hard. I'm definitely going to play hard. Everybody know that. So after that, I mean, that's about it.
So you're okay if the focus is still on him?
Oh, I don't care nothing about that focus stuff. Yeah, they can focus on him. I would like them to focus on him. You know, it might take some pressure off myself, you know. So, yeah. let them focus on him.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marla. Nate Ulrich, go ahead.
Hey, I was just wondering, a couple weeks ago, we got to talk to Malik Jackson after he signed, and he said he was talking about you, and he said, hop aboard and, you know, be with a good team and set yourself up for the future. I'm just wondering if you caught wind of those comments and if that kind of made anything.
I caught some of the words he said and some of the words the safety said about, hey, he ain't played with nobody in his career, come and join a good defense. And, you know, that kind of caught my attention. Them guys, they hungry. You know, I can tell you that. They're very hungry, and they feel like they on a winning team too, you know. So that's why I jumped on board. Try to get on that winning team. You know, I don't think Cleveland like people think they used to be. So I'm looking forward to this season and playing with a great group of guys and getting after guys.
Did any Browns players try to kind of reach out to you behind the scenes and recruit you?
A couple of them said a couple things to me, but I already had my mind kind of made up, you know, regardless of what anybody said. I think my team and I sat down and we made our mind up, a group decision, and that's where we're supposed to be this season.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Nate. Tony Grossi has our next question.
Hey, Jadeveon, I'm sorry. One of the words that Andrew Berry used to describe your style of play is relentless. Well, what can you say about his relentlessness with you? I mean, he just couldn't take no for an answer, I guess. Huh?
I got that same feel he got from him. That's why I ended up punting him. I said, this dude is very relentless, you know. So he was relentless in his getting after me, trying to get me up here, and I'm gonna be relentless on that field for him. He know I'm gonna play. He been watching my tape. He told me he liked my style of play. I said I'm gonna bring that here.
And just to get it on record, you went through a physical and passed it, and would be ready to go whenever they go back to work.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Daryl Ryder, go ahead.
You said you had your mind made up after meeting with your team. So if I can ask, when did you have your mind made up? When did you know you were going to be a Cleveland Brown?
Probably a week after my visit here. I said I'm probably gonna be signing to Cleveland. I told my girl and my family, I was like, man, I'm probably gonna end up going to Cleveland this season. They say Cleveland. I said, yeah. I said I enjoy my visit up there with them guys, like a great group of a great staff, and I can get along with them, have a good time. So I said I'm going to Cleveland. They said they couldn't believe it, but yeah.
Are they on board too now?
Oh, they definitely on board. They ain't got no choice. You know, they ain't got no choice but to be on board with me.
Thanks, Darrell. We have time for two more. Let's go to Doug Maurice and Mary Kay Cabot. Doug?
Hey, Jadeveon. At this point, you've been a Pro Bowler 3 times. You had more than 9 sacks twice. I'm just curious, like, how would you describe your career so far and sort of where you feel like you are in your evolution as a player right now?
The funny part thing I tell people about my career, it started off slow because I got hurt my first game of my career with a microfracture. Probably the worst injury you can have in this game. And I don't think everybody got to see the person they drafted yet. I think I'm working back towards that, but I'm well on my way now. I made 3 Pro Bowls, and it's funny because I ain't never really been all the way healthy to the point where I felt like nothing bothering me. So, but I still can dominate in this league. I know that. But if I ever reach that my max potential or getting back there like I feel now, man, they say the sky's the limit, but it's probably higher than that. And they got footprints on the moon, don't they? Well, that's what we trying to reach. So, you know, I just want to stay getting healthy. And if I play 16 games, I think we'll be able to see.
Thank you.
You know, just let me work on that.
Thanks, Doug. Our final question goes to Mary Kay Cabot.
Okay, I'm going to try to squeeze in 2 here real quick, Jadeveon, if you don't mind. The first one is, if you're setting your sights that high for what you can do over 16 games, do you have NFL Defensive Player of the Year in your sights as a goal?
For sure, I think so. With my potential and the way I play the game, if I can stay healthy and stay out there, yeah, I shouldn't be no far away from being a defensive player of the year. I think I got that type of potential, and I can do it.
Yeah, so you and Miles can fight each other for that.
Yeah, at least for All Pro, I know that. 1 and 2, something like that.
Okay, and then my other question is, when you looked at this globally about joining this team, how did you feel about being on a team with a guy like Odell Beckham Jr.? and joining Baker Mayfield. What do you think of those guys?
To be honest, I didn't even think about the offensive side. I was just thinking about the defense. And if I was thinking about offense, I'd probably start with that running game. The two-headed monster is really what get me, as them guys in the backfield, hard to tackle. I guess because I played against them too. I don't worry about receivers because I don't have to guard them. So kind of, yeah, I worry about the running game.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Kay. Jadeveon, thank you again for joining us today.
You ready?
And we'll look forward to seeing you when we can. Take care.
You were up.
Ooh, that was...
Well, it's a surreal thing, guys. Jadeveon Clowney is a Cleveland Brown. You heard that press conference. A lot of fun stuff in there. Love that quote. They got footprints on the moon, don't they? Talking about winning Defensive Player of the Year. And he brings up a great point. The injury early on in his career and what that did to kind of derail things, and that he's still working back from that. We will get into some other reaction from the Jadeveon Clowney press conference. He is a member of your Cleveland Browns, and boy, the expectations, I don't know that they've ever been higher. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Obsessing over something like football can be a problem, but if you're obsessing over gambling, it can be downright dangerous. So do something to take your mind off it. If you want some tips on what that could be, go to keepitfunohio.com for great ways to keep gambling fun. Jadeveon Clowney officially in the fold. You heard his press conference here live on Cleveland Browns Daily. Wide-ranging interview, candid, funny, a lot of fun stuff in there. Some real explanations as to why some of the things that had happened. You forget the injuries that have occurred, certainly. The one thing that jumped out to me, Gibbe, is Andrew Berry is a hell of a salesman. He really is. Now, he's selling a good product, but his ability to connect with guys in free agency is pretty remarkable. The idea that he was dogged in his pursuit of Clowney, obviously, but he got John Johnson early, he got Conklin early, he got Hooper early a year ago. His ability to connect and find guys, identify and connect, and then once he can get in front of them and get in a room with them, he sells it. He closes it. It really is an incredible job of that for a guy who has no previous experience with it.
No, very confident. I would say it's a quiet confidence, that's for sure, because when you see him in the hallways, he's just like how he is during his press conferences. Very quiet, very subdued, but clearly gets his point across. And I think that, when Tony Grossi asked him, I thought, a great question. Tony Grossi said, what do you think? Barry described you as relentless. And Jadeveon Clowney said, when I met with Andrew Barry, I thought he was the one that was relentless. He came across to me as relentless. And it's good to be wanted, and it's good, that guy sold me on that first visit and that first meeting here a few weeks ago.
The other thing, if you go back to some of Clowney's comments that jumps out, and this would apply to every interaction that I know I've had with Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Barry, and probably every interaction you've had with them. Straightforward, he said straightforward, laid back. No question. I mean, there is no nonsense meter with either one. It's just a straightforward, flat line, matter-of-fact approach. This is how we view you. This is what you can do. And that could be when they're talking to a player like that. It could be when you run into them in the hallway. They're just very straightforward, very direct. There's no nonsense to it. There's no game. You never know. You don't have to go, well, I don't know where I stand with him. You know exactly where you stand with those guys. And then the other thing that he said that they did, and of course they would be able to do this, but when he asked what he saw in the visit, he said, I can see myself doing that with the scheme fit. Immediately, we'd love to have you, and here's how we're going to use you. And that those things hit home for Jadeveon Clowney. And as we tackle the Keep It Fun Ohio web poll, look, I said it. To me, it's a Super Bowl contender. It's a top 5 roster in the NFL. I know that we're hesitant to tackle those things because of, don't jinx it, don't do all. I think we're beyond jinx. Sometimes you just call it what it is, that this is a great collection of talent. We cannot control any sort of crazy thing that could happen, any unforeseen thing that could happen on an injury front standpoint. That's football, that's life, it can happen. But on paper, in the middle of April of 2021, ahead of a season in the fall, to me, it's the most talented Browns team of my lifetime. I don't see a single hole on it, and I think it's a top 5 talented team in the entire NFL. And I think even teams that you would say, and maybe say are more talented, they have questions that I don't know that we have as currently constructed. Even Kansas City, you saw what happened on their offensive line. Now, they've got a superhuman at quarterback, but you see the issues they've had on their offensive line. They have some legitimate questions. We have none. We have, I think, the best offensive line in football. When healthy, we have, and again, when you're going to hear when healthy is a lot, you've got a receiving core that can make a lot of plays. You get Odell Beckham back. You've got the best run game in football. You've got a quarterback that proved what he could do in the Cincinnati game and going 20 touchdowns, 2 picks the rest of the way. They don't really have any real concerns in special teams anymore. You flip it to the defensive side of the ball, this defensive line, you can start to put up with anybody. The linebacking core, I think, is better than – I think we believe in it more than some others do, but you add Anthony Walker there. And this secondary, and again, this one's the one where you come back to if healthy, Grant Delpit if healthy, Greedy Williams if healthy, I think it can hang with most teams, a lot of teams. It can be very, very dynamic. I don't know if there's a true appreciation of how good John Johnson is. In terms of, our fan base, like how great he was for the Rams, and that he's one of the best safeties in all of the NFL, and you got him too, and you add him with Delpit and Harrison. So, to me, it's the most talented. It's the most talented Browns roster of my lifetime, and I think you can absolutely, legitimately put Super Bowl contender next to the name.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at Mike Clay's from ESPN, our good friend, updated 2021 NFL unit grades. So he goes through and he ranks each position, but then he gives a total grade for offense and a rank, a defensive grade and a rank, and then an overall. The Browns, they come in 6th best offense, according to him. Okay? The Cowboys, Tampa Bay, Green Bay, the Seahawks, and the Chiefs ahead of the Browns. Okay? Defensively, number
and I can
3.
even quibble with that a little bit with Seattle.
Yeah, and
defensively 3, huh?
Defensively number 3. Tampa Bay's ahead, and he's got Denver ahead, which is weird to me. I didn't see that coming. But he's got the Broncos at 1. He's got the Buccaneers at 2. Overall, he has us as number 2 behind Tampa Bay after free agency.
Total roster.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think. I would have Buffalo. I'd have Buffalo higher on the defensive side of things. I think they probably need a little more respect based on what they've done and what their secondary is all about. But yeah, I mean, if you're playing Madden and you're going team rating, we are going to be one of the 5 highest rated teams in Madden. I mean, we're going to be, I don't know how that works these days if there's a team that's a 94, but we'll be a 91. We'll be a 92. That's just who you are. And so it's going to be remarkable. The fact that 75th season, all of these things, I mean, it's really coming together.
You know, looking at some of these grades, the edge rusher position, after acquiring Jadeveon Clowney, we're number 1 at the edge rusher position. The off-season additions with Mr. Johnson joining the program and joining the team here in the off-season. From a defensive standpoint, you're in the top 10 at the safety position. You have elevated both of those to a huge, huge number. And that has taken this defense, again, 6 free agent signings on the defensive side of the ball.
You went from an Achilles heel in the back end of your defense to a strength. I mean, that used to be the weakness of the team. Now, some of that's because of the injuries that happened last year. You know, I mean, if Greedy and Delpit were there all year, you know, you wouldn't have been what we were in the back end. But as Nathan brings up often, if Delpit isn't hurt, you probably don't have Harrison. So that allows you to have Harrison, Delpit, and Johnson now. You add Hill in the slot, a healthy Greedy, Denzel on the outside. Now, all of a sudden, something that at one point, the back 7, you'd look at it and go, boy, I don't know if everything's there. Now you look at it and you go, yeah, absolutely. It's now a strength of this team. That defensive line, a strength of this team. It's loaded. Maybe that's what we do with the Keep It Fun Ohio web poll. Are you comfortable, or do you have one?
I've got an idea, and we can launch it. I'm going to launch it tomorrow to kick off the show.
All right.
My thought was for tomorrow. It'll be up when the show starts tomorrow because we got a pretty loaded show tomorrow now.
Yeah.
Best off-season acquisition by this football team.
I like it.
You've got options.
I like
That's always a positive.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, Gibby. You're doing that question without the draft taking place. We haven't even done that yet. So you're going to get some dudes there. I mean, your first and second rounders are going to be dudes. I mean, that's the way it's going to go, and that's what we're entitled to and what we're used to. Go ahead.
I thought it was interesting. Clowney said, I have an agent that was all about me going to the Browns this year.
Well, I think he was more I didn't know what to read into that. I don't know that. It'd be silly for me to speak on it, and I don't want to paint myself into a corner because I don't know the backstory.
I just found it interesting because his agent last year was also Myles Garrett's agent. So I'm not so sure about that.
Well, what I wonder is if, and again, this is dicey, so take it for a grain. This isn't a scores moment, but the way I kind of read that was the previous agent looking for a multi-year big money deal and not interested in, although apparently we offered the most money reportedly a year ago, and now this agent is more of a, hey, let's go prove what we are, and then we'll make the money. I wonder if that was the way to interpret that, more so than an agent who didn't I didn't, because he didn't say an agent who didn't want me here. I just think it was didn't want me to do that. So I don't know that, and I wouldn't want to go any further than that. But that was when he said it. That's the way that I kind of read it off of that front. We'll get some reaction on some of the other luminaries around the NFL on the Jadeveon Clowney signing by the Cleveland Browns. We will have that for you coming up next. Plus, we have the information on what the offseason will look like in terms of the offseason program. We hit that coming up next as well. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. The 2021 NFL Draft is coming to Cleveland. It's April 29th through May 1st, and you can be a part of the action at the NFL Draft Experience taking place outside First Energy Stadium. The 2021 NFL Draft Experience is a free football celebration. It is open to families and fans of all ages. Space is limited. Reserve your tickets today via the NFL One Pass. Let's get some reaction from some of the luminaries around the sport. This was Marcus Spears this morning on Get Up on the Browns' potential ceiling. Let's have a listen.
Marcus, why not the Browns? They made the run last year. They get Odell Beckham back healthy. Maybe now they add Jadeveon Clowney. They've got that year of experience in the system under their coach. What is the ceiling for the Cleveland Browns heading into the 2021 season?
A deep playoff run and a dark horse Super Bowl. Listen, guys, y'all know how I've been with Baker Mayfield. The issue is, if he doesn't take a step back, Cleveland is going to be better than they were last year.
Yeah.
And Stefanski did a phenomenal job. Now, there's film now on the Cleveland Browns and how they like to play football. So teams adjust to that. That's the way the NFL goes. But if Baker Mayfield can continue to trend and they sign Jadeveon Clowney, which I want to gush over, because sometimes people get it twisted, because Jadeveon doesn't have these crazy wild sack numbers. And look, rightfully so. That comes with being the #1 overall pick, the speed, the ability, all of these things you look at. But you put him across from Myles Garrett, and you have this defensive line and a healthy back end, like Cleveland was ravaged with injury as well from a defensive standpoint with young guys, Grant Delpit and those guys on the back end. Ward was not there all season long. This can be a great team, not a good team. This can be a great team. It's about their quarterback continuing to progress, and defensively, if they stay healthy and they sign Jadeveon Clowney, between him and this could be the dark horse Super Bowl team, G. And it's so crazy that I'm saying that about the Cleveland Browns, but it's legit based on how we saw them play,
You're back up
here.
You know what this kind of reminds me of a little bit, Gibby, is kind of the way, anytime we talk about Stafford, especially with people who played in the league, like they gush about Stafford, players do, guys in the league. And sometimes people say, oh, he can't win, he's not this, it's empty stats, it's all of this. But when you talk to people in the league, like you, when you talk to people in the league who played, they gush over Stafford and what he brings to the table. And I do sense a little of that with Clowney, that there is this narrative from fans, media looking for sacks that doesn't maybe match up with the reality in terms of what NFL players think of him and his disruption.
I would tend to agree with that. I mean,
yeah, it does seem like it.
I thought the feeling around the league is the guy can play, and you have to know where he is on the football field. And you can't have enough of those kind of guys that you have to game plan for. I mean, I can remember having conversations a few years ago with, our situation and playing other teams and going, having people tell you, like, there's no one that we're game planning for on your team. Well, now you're game planning for a lot. You better know where Clowney is on the field.
It's a full day, and the versatility is very, very real. Pat McAfee, who's kind of been hinting at how he thought this thing would go, has responded on his show this afternoon as well, the signing of Jadeveon Clowney to the Cleveland Browns. Here's Pat McAfee from his show.
The Ravens and Colts were allegedly keeping an eye on the Jadeveon Clowney situation, which would probably have ended this past weekend if it wasn't for weather issues with a flight where he was supposed to travel to Cleveland to meet with them a second time. That got pushed to today because the flight got delayed or canceled or whatever. He signs with the Cleveland Browns. They tried to get him last year. Now, reports came out that Cleveland offered him a 3-year, $50-some million deal. Other people have said that was not 100% accurate. It was a differently structured deal. So who knows where it is. There was interest on both sides last offseason. The Cleveland Browns win games with Stefanski, get to a playoff game, win a playoff game. Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, now together for at least 1 year with a deal worth up to $10 million. The Browns are signing free agent pass rusher Jadeveon Clowney to a 1-year deal after he passed his physical, sources say, landing a player who has been a target of Cleveland's for years. Fresh off a lost season in 2020, Clowney has high hopes with his new team. He's a disruptor on that Cleveland Browns team. They're a team that can make a run. They have a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball, especially with Odell Beckham coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got Myles Garrett. I think Olivier Vernon, was he a free agent?
Yeah, he's free agent.
He's free agent, so who knows what happens there, right? Who knows? Has he been signed anywhere?
No,
I
he's been 12 sacks last year, though.
He had a big-time year, and I remember a couple highlight plays out of Olivier Vernon in big-time situations as well. He's a free agent as well. Let's see how that whole thing shapes up. He might be back. But, man, the thought of Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett walking off the bus first, just wherever, however, to do whatever. I mean, it is something that is the Browns needed a little bit more depth on the defensive side. They get it. Can Clowney play in a fashion that is going to help the Cleveland Browns be much better at football? Yes. Can Clowney play in a fashion that'll make the critics in the media potentially give him more respect, which would be a high stat having and everything like that? I'm not sure if that's his style of play anymore. I think he is just a disruptor of the game, and I can't wait to see him with Cleveland. Good for Cleveland, bad for the AFC North.
Yeah, and obviously, Pat, forgetting the Olivier Vernon torn Achilles, which happened at the end of the last season on that front. And I mean, he's not covering us, and so that's fine. But you hear the comments there, and it's just a crown you're going to have to walk around with, which is, a Super Bowl contender. That's just the way it's going to go. You're going to hear that more and more. It's legitimate. The roster's that good, and it's one we can't wait to get our eyes on, frankly. And as the NFL off-season program has now been this has been a weird week. So you had the comments over the weekend from the NFLPA saying, hey, don't report. You had yesterday when we were on the show, you had the Denver Broncos team opt out. You had DeMaurice Smith and our guy J.C. Treader, the president of the NFLPA, strongly encouraging guys to not report to the off-season OTA program due to the recommendations of their medical staff and in respect to COVID. You had yesterday the news of the NFL wanting to say, hey, unless you have a health reason or religious reason not to get the vaccination, if you're not, you can't be in Tier 1 or Tier 2, which to my understanding of it, and Gibby, you're back in the building, so you have a better understanding than me, but to my understanding, that's exactly what we were last year.
Correct.
So that seems like that's the same processes as we had last year. So that was probably done to say, hey, guys, it's going to be the same. Be the same it was a year ago. Nothing to see here. And then now, today, the NFL released the summary of the off-season program. So it's 9 weeks in length. It is voluntary, except for the one mandatory mini camp. So the first phase actually starts next week, and it's 4 weeks long, virtual meetings, 2 hours per day at the club's direction, no on-field drills or work with the coaches. Facility and weight room capacity limits remain in place. Clubs will make every effort to have the vaccine available for players, staff, and families during this first phase of the program. So it's 4 weeks of that. The second phase is just 1 week, and that's all the way May 17th to May 21. Virtual meetings, on-field drills with coaches per CBA rules, so no contact, teaching pace. And then the third phase is May 24th through June 18th. That seems, in my mind's eye, a little later than we normally go, Gibby, on that, all the way into that far into June. Aren't we usually done more first, second week of June?
The last couple of years, it's been a week earlier than that. But
okay.
I do remember being in the middle of Cavs NBA Finals, and having mini camp going on, a mandatory mini camp going on the same week. So,
okay. So that would be your traditional OTA time. So that's May 24th through 18th. That's 10 days. That is full speed, no contact, in-person or virtual meetings, and this includes the mandatory mini camp phase. So that gives you an idea of what the NFL's plan is on this, and I think the notion that the whole first phase is going to be no in-person and only virtual meetings tells you about kind of all you need to know on that front. Payment per CBA and individual player contracts, players' eligibility for bonus payments determined by terms of players' contract. The COVID protocols, and this was negotiated by the NFLPA, daily testing with MESA tests, staff vaccination protocols, other regular season protocols in place, distancing masks, all of that, which this is just a commentary for me on the side. If everybody's been vaccinated and everyone's tested, I guess just an abundance of caution probably, that the other regular season protocols will be in place there. No change in rookie football development program or post-draft rookie minicamp. So that's where you sit on that front. And now I suppose the ball is back in the court of the NFLPA in terms of what that could be.
And again, we have to remind people, this is voluntary. This was voluntary before the pandemic. Outside of the mandatory mini camp in June that kind of wraps everything up before we go to training camp, this is all voluntary. So players don't have to show up. Now, if you have an off-season workout bonus, it might behoove you to show up or be a part of these virtual meetings. But, it's the league's trying to do something, and the players' union and the players seem pretty dug in. We want it all virtual.
Yeah, they want even the mandatory minicamp. They want virtual because that's really the only thing that I can see that isn't at this point. Correct? Is just the mandatory minicamp. Everything else is virtual at that point. Oh no, though is that third phase. There is a now that I'm looking at in that third phase there is a some on-field, no contact walking around stuff that's going on.
And phase 2 is only like 5 days, so I'm not really sure what that's all about, but. And that seems to have a little on-field drill with coaches per CBA rules. And that I could see that maybe being more of an install, probably, on that particular week, and then starting to get into things. So.
Yeah, I mean that could be what it is. So we're still, as the vaccine rollout has happened, as we've been living amongst this now. 57 weeks, Gibby. We've been doing the show this way, the way we've been doing it for 57 weeks. Pretty remarkable. As those things continue to be the reality, there is this feeling of getting back to normal and all of that, but we're still in that early phases of that. And, who knows what camp looks like or what that will be. But we know that the NFLPA is pretty dug in on this. I mean, that's been pretty emphatic, and I think it'll be a pretty organized pushback on their end. If they want it to be all virtual this offseason, I could see it being a pretty organized pushback. We've already seen that from a lot of the teams around the league, that it would be. But those are conversations for the coming days and weeks. The story of this day is that Jadeveon Clowney is a Cleveland Brown. Go ahead, my friend.
No, what I was going to say is it will be interesting because we've seen 4 or 5 teams that have opted out. Or not teams, but players on the team saying we're not going to report. It's going to be all virtual for us.
Don't you anticipate they all will? I mean, that you wouldn't do that unless everybody was doing it. I don't sense it'll be.
There are a couple teams in question.
I don't think 5 teams will.
Like Buffalo, Green Bay. I was reading there were 1 or 2 others, like cold weather climates. A lot of a few of those teams. A lot of their players have off-season workout bonuses for coming back and working out because the weather's not great.
Oh, sure.
So there's some sizable chunks of money being thrown around for a few of those teams, and it'll be interesting if those players agree or disagree.
I could see us being in that boat. I'm sure that we have some. I mean, I don't know the contracts front and back, but I would imagine we would have some workout bonuses that would be, in those contracts. So it'd be interesting to see, what happens with all of that. Still so much more to come on a really fun day here on Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Man, it's a fun show, guys. That's just outstanding. Jadeveon Clowney into the mix. And, I've already seen, a couple people say, I'm just worried. Are we too don't worry about being chessy. Talent equates. It's not fake. It's all very real. As Nathan famously said about your quarterback, you can hug this team. This team's very real. They are Super Bowl contenders, and the roster is absolutely loaded. Tomorrow, Z returns. We will go one-on-one with Jadeveon Clowney tomorrow on the show. Bucky Brooks will join the show. Dane Brugler will join the show. This is going to be fascinating when it comes to the draft, guys, because one of the things that I want to talk to, Gibby, with Bucky and with Dane is from the standpoint of who are guys who could fall that all of a sudden you wake up and go, my goodness, it's Christmas morning. Look who we ended up with. I think that's kind of going to be the way that that I'll shift the draft dialogue going forward, because I don't think it's position specific in any way.
No, I think day one is probably going to be your best available, and I think day two, we talked about it yesterday. I think this team could make a few moves. That's where they're going to unload picks or move things around. I totally think that they could move up 8 to 10 spots if a guy falls.
Yep, I agree. Going to be fun. That's a fun program for you tomorrow. The next level is coming up next. We're back tomorrow, guys. Thanks for listening. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.